In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to crochet this trendy Pinterest-inspired granny short. This is an easy step-by-step video that will walk you through how to create this shirt in no time. And I also have a written pattern on my blog. You can check it in the description box if you'd like to follow along. For this tutorial, you're going to need yarn. The yarn that I'm using is Robin 100% acrylic. It's a 3-ply fine or fingering weight yarn. I'll also use a 3.0mm crochet hook. Hope you can see it's 3.0mm. A pair of scissors, at least 5 buttons. The button that I'm going to use are these ones. And then you're going to need a darning needle. And if you're using a different size of yarn, you'll need a tape measure. So that is all that we need. Let's now head over to the tutorial. So to begin, you're going to take your yarn and your 3.0 hook. Start by making a slip knot, and then you're going to chain 49 if you're working a size medium. So remember, you're going to work 2 front panels that are identical from the bottom row all the way to the neck area, and then we'll shape the left leaning neckline separately from the right leaning neckline. So if you're working a size medium, you're going to chain 49 or until your foundation chain measures approximately 9.5 to 10 inches. If you're working small, it should measure 8.5 to 9, and then if you're working an extra small, just reduce with 1 inch in each size. If you're working with larger sizes, increase with 1 inch. So I'm going to start by working 49, and your number of chains should be a multiple of 3 plus 1. So I stopped at 31 chains because I didn't want to make it long. I already did the 2 front panels all the way from bottom to the neckline shaping, and I'll just show you how to do the first 3 rows, then we can repeat row 2 and row 3 all the way. So for row 1, you're going to skip the very first 3 chains. So skip. Remember, the loop on your hook is not a stitch, so count the first one from here, the second and the third, and in this 4th chain you want to work a double crochet, then add another double crochet in the very same chain stitch. So you should have 3 double crochet stitches at this point. Remember, the chain 3 that we skipped counted as a stitch. Then chain 1, skip the next 2 chains, and in the 3rd chain you want to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2 and 3. Chain 1, skip the next 2 chains, and in the 3rd chain work 3 double crochets. So we have 1, 2 and 3. So your pattern repeat for row 1 will be chain 1, skip 2, and in the 3rd chain place 3 double crochets. Chain 1, skip 2, and in the 3rd chain place 3 double crochets, and repeat that all the way, finishing your row with 3 double crochets in the very last chain stitch. Then we'll turn to row 2. So when you reach the end of your row, you should end with 3 double crochets, as well as the first. We started with 3 double crochets, so you're going to end with 3 double crochets. So for row 2, you're going to start by chaining 3, 2, 3. These 3 chains count as a double crochet, then add 1 chain, which will be a chain 1 over these 3 double crochet cluster, then yarn over, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to place 3 double crochets. So we have 1, 2 and 3. Then chain 1, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to skip these 3 double crochet clusters. So in the next space place 3 double crochets. 1, 2 and 3. Chain 1, skip the next 3 double crochet cluster and place 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space. So we have 1, 2 and 3. chain 1. So pattern repeat for row 2 will be, after working a 3 double crochet in the chain 1 space, you chain 1, skip the next 3 double crochet cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to place 3 double crochet, chain 1, in the next space place 3 double crochet, chain 1, in the next space place 3 double crochet, all the way until you have this very last cluster remaining. So I'll meet you after working in this very last chain 1 space. After working in the last chain 1 space in row 2, we're going to chain 1 and then locate the third chain in this very last cluster. So we have 1, 2 double crochets, and the very last double crochet was a chain 3. So you're going to locate the third chain in that chain 3 and then finish with a double crochet. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, then yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. For row 3, you're going to start by chaining 3, chain 3, count as a stitch all the way to the end of our work in this tutorial. So you're going to yarn over, and in this first chain 1 space, the very first chain 1 space, you're going to add 2 double crochets. So that is the first one and then the second double crochet, then chain 1, skip the next cluster of 3 double crochets, and in the next chain 1 space place 3 double crochets. So we have 1, 2 and 3, chain 1, skip the next cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to place 3 double crochet, 1, 2 and 3, chain 1. Repeat that pattern all the way to the end by skipping the clusters and placing 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, then chain 1, skip the next cluster, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain space, all the way until you have only this chain 4 space remaining. So I went ahead with my row 3 and I'm here remaining with only the chain 4 remaining. So what you're going to do, you're going to work, remember we had a chain 3 which counted as our first double crochet, and a chain 1 which counted as a chain 1 space. So in that chain 1 space you're going to place 3 double crochets in total. So 1, 2 and 3. So at this point you have an alternative of working 2 double crochets in this space and then locating the third chain and placing the double crochet in that very last, or that third chain at the very end here, but I prefer doing it this way because it works easier for me and I don't have to look at the third chain. So after you're through with your 3 rows, you're going to repeat row 2 and row 3 all the way until your work measures approximately 52, until you have a total of 52 rows, or your work measures approximately 20 inches. So this one will be 20 inches, and then we'll add 3 or 4 inches for the neckline here. So that is what you're going to do, and I'll meet you when you're shaping now the neckline of our front panels. So you're going to do this one for both the left and the right panel. So I finished 52 rows for this panel, and I'm going to start by shaping the left panel. So we're going to start by shaping the neckline for the left panel, and for row 53 we're going to chain 3, which count as a double crochet, and in this very first chain 1 space you're going to place 2 double crochets, then chain 1 and 3 double crochets in each chain 1 space until you reach the very last space. So go ahead, do that, and then I'll meet you in the very last space when we'll do the shaping. So when you reach the very last space, previously we used to place 3 double crochets in this very last chain 4 space, but for this neckline area we're going to place only 1 double crochet, and then you're going to chain 4 and turn, Then skip the next cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to place 3 double crochets. So remember, this row 54, the second row of shaping our neckline, we did not start in the very first space here. We skipped it and skipped the cluster and worked in the next space. Remember, after every 3 double crochet you're going to chain 1, then you want to continue by placing 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1 in each chain 1 space until you reach the very last space here. So work your last 3 double crochet, chain 1, then I'll meet you at the end of row 54 and at the start of row 55. So when you reach the last chain 1 space, after working in that space, you're going to chain 1 and then locate the third chain in the very last cluster and work a double crochet, then chain 3. Remember, we're only decreasing on one side, the neck side. So after chaining 3, you're going to work 2 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, then chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, then chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and chain 1. Then you're going to repeat that all the way until you have the last cluster remaining. So I'll meet you after working 3 double crochet in this space, then you'll have your last cluster and the chain 4 remaining. After working in that chain 1 space and then you have the last cluster remaining, you're going to chain 1, and then in the very last chain 4 skip the cluster, and in this chain 4 you're going to place only 1 double crochet. Then you're going to chain 4 and turn, skip the double crochet, skip the chain 1, skip the cluster, and in the next chain 1 space, that is, we're going to work 3 double crochets. So basically repeating row 54 in this row 56. Then chain 1, place 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1. So you're going to repeat row 54 and row 55. Remember, this was our row 52, then row 53. So you're going to repeat row 54 and row 55 all the way until your work measures 3 inches, your neck area measures 3 inches. So remember, this was the end of our body, so our neck started here. So you're going to do this until it measures 3 inches from the row 53 going up. If you're working an extra small, it should measure roughly 2.5 inches, and if you're working larger sizes like 2XL to 5XL, it should be 4 inches. So I went ahead and finished 61 rows in total, and my work measures the neckline or the neck area from row 53 to row 61 measures 3¼ inches. That is okay for size small all the way to large or extra large. So at the end of that, you're going to cut our yarn. Just chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving a long tail that we will use to join the front panel to the back panel from 2 times the length to 3 times the length. When that is done, we'll now turn to the right side panel. So for the right panel, instead of working our decreases at the very end of the next row as we did on the left panel, we're going to start our decreases at the very beginning of our next row. So for row 53, you're going to chain 4, you're going to chain 3, do not chain 4. So you're going to chain 3, then turn your work, and you're going to skip the chain 1, skip the next cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you're going to work 3 double crochets. Then chain 1, skip the next cluster, 3 double crochets in the next one, chain 1, skip the next cluster, 3 double crochet in the next one, and repeat your pattern by chaining 1 and working 3 double crochet in each of these spaces all the way until you reach the very end. And when you reach here in this chain 4 you're going to work 3 double crochets. So finish that and then I'll meet you in the next row. At the end of row 53 you should chain 3, chain 4, not 3, chain 4, then turn your work and you're going to skip the very first cluster, and in this next chain 1 space place 3 double crochets, then chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next space, chain 1, and repeat that until you reach or until you have your last cluster and this chain space remaining. So when you reach the end of your row and you have the last cluster and the last chain 3 remaining, you're going to chain 1, and then in this space you're going to work a double crochet, then chain 3, turn your work, skip the first space and the next cluster, then work 3 double crochets in this cluster here, in the space, not cluster, 2, 3, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochets in the next space, and repeat that all the way to the end, ending your row with 3 double crochets in the last chain 4 space. So finish that and then you're going to repeat row 54 and 55 until you have a total of 61 rows, or your number of rows is the same as the previous panel or the left panel. So do that. At the very end I'll meet you when you're now working on the back panel. At the end of row 61, your last row should end on this straight side. You're going to chain 1 and then leave a long tail to join it also to the back panel. Then pull the yarn through that last chain 1. So our front 2 panels are complete, and the next step will be to work on the back panel. So I went ahead and finished the back panel off camera, and I'll just show you how to do or how to go about it. So you're going to chain, remember if you chained 49 in the front panel, we're going to take that one number, multiply by 2, so that was 49. You're going to multiply it by 2, which will give you 98, and then you're going to add 5 to it. So you're going to chain 103 for the back panel if you're working the medium size. If you chained 46, you're going to take that, you multiply it by 2, which will give you 92, and then you add that to 5, which will give you 97. So you're going to chain 97 if you're working with a small one. So just take the number of chains you did for the front panel, then multiply that by 2 and add it to 5, and then you're going to repeat row 1. You're going to repeat row 1, 2, 3 as of front panel, then repeat the row 2 and row 3 of front panel all the way until you have a total of 59 rows if you're going to have 61 rows for your t-shirt. If for your shirt, if you're going to have a different number of rows,
just make sure that the back panel measures 2 inches less. So if your front panel you have 50 rows, your back panel you should have 48 rows. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you now when you're shaping the neckline of the back panel and joining the back panel to the front panels. So once you're through with your number of rows for the back panel, you're going to mark areas for the shoulder, for the neck. You're going to mark areas where you're going to start decreasing, and to do that you're going to count the number of granny stitches for the front panel. So for this front panel we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So we won't count this one, so we have 11 granny stitches. And for this back panel you're going to take that, then add 2. So we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, then add 2, and in that next space is you're going to place your stitch marker, and do the same for this other side. So we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, then add 2 and place your marker. So that is what you're going to do for each size, for any size that you did or you worked on. So once you're through with your number of rows for the back panel, once you've worked your back panel all the way to row 59, if you're working with my pattern here, you're going to mark now the points where you'll start decreasing the neck area. So to do that, you're going to count your number of clusters for the front panel. So the last clusters that you had here, and you have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. You'll not count the double crochet here. And then you're going to count the same for the back panel, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, and then add only 1 to it, then place your marker after that 12th cluster. Do the same for this other side. Count 11, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, then add 1 to it, so you have 12, and place your stitch marker in that chain 1 space after the 12th cluster. So for row 60 of the back panel, you're going to start by chaining 4. I already chained 1, so I have 4 chains, and then you're going to skip the first cluster and 3 double crochet in this next chain 1 space. Chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in each space until you have your space with stitch marker remaining. Then I'll show you how to finish off and then finish our next row. So when you have your space with marker remaining, you're going to chain 1 after your previous cluster, then place only 1 double crochet in that space, then chain 3 and turn. And for your row 61 or your last row, you'll skip the chain 1 space and skip the next cluster, and in this next space you're going to place 3 double crochet, then chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next space, chain 1, and repeat that, finishing your row with 3 double crochet in this very last chain 4 space. When you reach the end of row 61 for the back panel, you're going to chain 1 and just cut your yarn. And that is complete. This is how it will look like. So we'll proceed to this other side. Now for this other side, you're going to start by attaching your yarn with a chain, and then you're going to chain 3, skip the next cluster, then 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and repeat that all the way, finishing your row with a double crochet in the very last stitch. So you're going to work your last 3 double crochet in this last chain 1 space, then you're going to chain 1 and locate the 3rd stitch and finish with a double crochet. Then we'll turn to row 61. At the end of row 59, you're going to chain 3, then turn to row 61. So for this row or the last row, you're going to work 2 double, after chaining 3, you're going to work 2 double crochet in the next, or in the very first chain 1 space, then chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the next space, chain 1, and then you're going to repeat that until you reach the very end, or until you have your last cluster and your last chain 3 remaining. So when you reach the end of row 61 and you have this cluster and the chain space remaining, you're going to chain 1 after that last 3 double crochet, then go in that space and place only 1 double crochet, chain 1 and cut your yarn. So at this point you should have 11 clusters. If you had 11 clusters, the number of clusters here should correspond to the number of clusters in the front panel. So this is how our work looks like at this point. So once you're through with all the body panels, that is the back panel and the 2 front panels, you're going to layer them like this, with the wrong side facing out and the right sides facing each other. So the right side is the last row that you did, so you're going to turn it to the wrong side, and then the back panel should also be the right side facing up and the wrong side facing down. Then you're going to join the shoulder seams using slip stitch on both sides. So we'll do this side and then I can do this one off camera. So using the yarn tail that we have here, the one that we left while working the front panel, you're going to insert your hook in the very last stitch on both sides, the front and the back, then yarn over, pull through that yarn and chain 1, and then for the next stitches you're going to work slip stitches. So insert your hook in the next stitch, going through both loops, do the same for the other side, yarn over, pull through all those loops, go in the next, insert your hook through both loops, yarn over, pull through, then go in the chain 1 space on both sides also and slip stitch. Now you're going to work slip stitches in each stitch and in each chain space all the way to the end, and I'll meet you when you're working on the other side, or when you're finishing this side, then you can do this one on your own. So your work should end on the very last double crochet stitches. You're going to slip stitch on this one and the one at the back, then you can chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving a longer tail to weave in. Pull it through. So this is how the seam looks like on the wrong side, and then this is how it looks like on the right side. So go ahead and do the same for the opposite side, and then I'll meet you when you're now joining the sleeves to the body. So we'll turn our work like this and then mark points where to start working on the sleeve, work all the way to the end, then proceed with the sleeve to our desired length, and then fold it, join the sleeve seam and the side seam. So once you're done with the shoulder seaming, I already did one sleeve and I'll show you just how I did it. So you want to lay your work flat, and then you want to measure from the shoulder seam. You want to measure roughly 7.5, depending on how wide you want this seam to, the sleeve round to be. So mine, I'd like it to be 15 inches round. So I'm going to mark on my work, I'm going to find where my 7.5 inches reaches, and it's here. So that is where I'm going to start my work. So you want to count the row and then duplicate it on the other side. So if it's the 10th row, you want to find the 10th row on this other side. If it's the 20th row, you're going to do the 20th row on this back side. Once you've marked where you're going to start your sleeve stitches, you're going to turn your work, because you want to start our first row on the right side. So take your yarn and then attach it in that stitch. You can either do the standing double crochet or just a normal chain 3. I'll just do the chain 3. Make sure you leave a long tail to secure that end. So chain 3, and then you want to work 3 double crochets in the very same space. Sorry, 2 double crochets, because the chain 3 will count as our first double crochet. So add only 2 double crochets, then skip the next row, and in the next space chain 1 in between these clusters, then 3 double crochet in this next space, chain 1, skip the next row, 3 double crochet in the next row, chain 1, skip the next row, 3 double crochet in the next row, and you want to repeat this all the way to the end of your work. The end of your work, I mean where your next marker is. So just to add on something, when you reach the shoulder seam, here we have 3 double crochet on this side and then 3 double crochet on this other side, and then you have a seam in between. So you can either skip this one and go right on these next 3 double crochets. That will mean that on this other side you're going to work on the 3 double crochet rows, but I'd like to continue working on the spaces here, so I'll work my 3 double crochets in this right in the seam. So just go there and place 3 double crochets, then chain 1 and continue with your work on the spaces all the way until you reach your marker. So I proceeded with my rows, and I'm here at the end or at the space of the next marker, and my sleeve width, or this will be the width of my sleeve. So I'm going to turn my row by chaining 4. This chain 4 will count as a chain 3 here at the beginning, a double crochet and a chain 1 for the chain 1 space. Then turn your work, and for row 2 you want to skip the 3 double crochet cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you want to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2 and 3. Then chain 1, skip the next cluster, and in the next chain 1 space you want to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2 and 3, and this is the repeat also for this row all the way to the end. So continue, and I'll meet you when you have only the last cluster remaining after working in the last chain 1 space. After working in the last chain 1 space, you're going to chain 1 and then locate the 3rd chain here on the very first cluster and double crochet. Then you're going to chain 3. This will count as our first double crochet of the next row. Then yarn over, and in that first chain 1 space you want to place 2 double crochets. So 1, 2, so that it replicates the first row of the sleeves. Then chain 1, and in every chain 1 space you want to place 3 double crochets all the way until you reach the very end, or until you have the last chain 4 remaining. So go ahead, and then I'll meet you at the end of the row. After working the 3 double crochet in the last chain 1 space, you're going to chain 1, and then the very last chain 4 you want to place 3 double crochets. So you can either do 2 double crochet and then locate the 3rd chain and work your last double crochet. I prefer just going in that chain 4 space and working 3 double crochets. Then chain 4, and your pattern repeat is going to be row 2 and row 3 all the way until you have your desired length of the sleeve. Mine measures 6 inches and I have a total of 17 rows. So go ahead, make sure that your last row is the row 3 pattern ending on the right side of your work. So go ahead, and then I'll meet you when you're now working on the side seams or joining all the seams together, working the neck, band and the front. After finishing 17 rows for the sleeve, you're going to chain 1, cut your yarn, And then we're going to turn our work now. We fold it like this on the shoulder seam and then join the sides. So we're going to start from the sleeve here all the way to the underarm and then down to the bottom of your shirt. So fold it on the wrong side. This one is the right side, so we want to fold it on the wrong side. And then with your 3mm hook, you want to insert your hook on the very last stitch on both sides of the sleeve panel. Then yarn over, chain one, and then you want to place 2 single crochets around that first 2 double crochet stitches. Then in the next row we also want to do 2 single crochets around the stitches, and repeat this all the way until you reach the underarm. So place 2 single crochets around every double crochet stitch. Once you're through with all the sleeve stitches, you want to turn now and work on the body rows. So go in the very first space where we did our stitches for the sleeves and work a single crochet, then turn. Now we're going to work on these rows for the body panel. So the first 2 double crochets, just place 2 single crochets around them, then 2 single crochets around every double crochet row all the way to the end. So just repeat that all the way to the end of your row and do the same for this other opposite side. After finishing all the inside seams, you want to turn your work now to the right side, and then we'll start with the neck. How do we call it? So you want to mark the row that we started the neckline shaping. That was row 62 when you started from the bottom there, and now it is here. So you want to go in that space, attach the yarn, and then you want to chain 3. So 1, 2, we already we attached our yarn with a chain stitch, so you want to chain 2, added with the one that we used to attach the yarn, that will be chain 3. And then in the same space you want to add 2 more double crochets. Remember, the chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Then you want to continue placing 3 double crochets in each space until you reach the shoulder seam. Do not chain 1 between the 3 double crochets. When you reach the shoulder seam, you want to go over to the back panel, and remember we had only 2 rows of the neck decreases, so you're going to work 3 double crochets in each of those 2 row stitches, and then turn to the back side, the space that we left on the back panel, and in this space you want to place 3 double crochets in each chain 1 space. So do that, and then I'll meet you in this other corner. So when you throw with all the chain 1 spaces of the back panel, you want to go on, place 3 double crochets in each of these double crochet rows, and then turn to the front panel and do the same until you reach the 53rd row, or the row we started shaping the neckline. So do that, and then I'll meet you in row 2. Remember, we started shaping the neckline on row 53 of both sides, so if you don't know exactly where you started, you're going to count row 53 all the way from here, and then that is where you want to end your row. At the end of your first row of the neck shaping or the neckband, You want to chain 3. So already have my 3 chains, and then turn your work. You're going to yarn over, skip the 3 double crochet cluster below, and in the next space between the 3 double crochets you're going to place 3 double crochets. And then skip the next 3 double crochet below, and in the next space between the 3 double crochet clusters you're going to place 3 double crochet. And this is going to be the pattern. Repeat all the way to the end of the row. So continue, and I'll meet you at the very end when you're working on your last stitch. After working in the last space between the 3 double crochet clusters and you have only the 3 double crochet remaining here at the end, you want to yarn over, locate the last stitch in that cluster and work a double crochet. Row 3 will repeat our row 1 pattern, so you want to chain 3. This will count as your first double crochet stitch, and then in the very first space between the double crochet and the 3 double crochet cluster, work 2 double crochet, not 3, 2 double crochet, because the first chain 3 will act as our first double crochet. And then go ahead placing 3 double crochet in each space between the double crochet clusters all the way to the end, ending your row with 3 double crochet in the last chain 3 space. So this is what you're going to do. In every space you want to place 3 double crochet, and when you reach the very last space here in this last chain 3 space, you want to place 3 double crochet there. Then you're going to repeat row 2 and row 3 all the way until you achieve your desired length of the neckband, and then we'll proceed to working the front button band. Yeah. So I went ahead and finished 8 rows, and my work measures 3 inches the collar. So I'll just chain 1 and cut the yarn. If you want a longer collar, you can go ahead and add more rows, but to me the 3 inches is just enough. So this is how it will look like when folded. Now our next step is now to work the front ribbing or the button band. So you're going to pick a side where you want to place your buttons. You can either choose the left or the right side. So for me, I'll add the buttons on my right side when worn. So I'll turn my work. Make sure that you want to start your first row on the right side of your shirt. So this is my right side, and I'll start here from the bottom all the way until the beginning of my collar. So using the 3mm crochet hook and your yarn, you want to go in the very last row, go around that last double crochet and attach your yarn, then chain 1. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so you want to work 2 single crochets in that last stitch. Then go in the next row stitch, place 2 single crochets around that double crochet, go in the next row stitch, place 2 single crochets around it, then continue placing 2 single crochets around every double crochet stitch until you reach your neckband or your neck area. You want to end your rows, or you want to end your single crochet stitches on the last double crochet stitch to the collar. So don't work in this space with our first collar stitch. Just finish on this last stitch before working the collar. Then chain 1 and turn your work. For row 2, you want to work single crochet stitch on every single crochet stitch. So in every stitch you want to place 1 single crochet all the way to the end, and we want to repeat that row 2 until you have a total of 5 rows. So go ahead and finish your 5 rows, then we'll turn to our side, the opposite side, when working on the buttonholes. When you through with your 5 rows of single crochets, you're going to chain 1 and cut your yarn. I already chained 1, so I'll just cut my yarn, then pull it through that chain. So our button side is complete, and you're going to do the same for the buttonhole side, except you're going to add holes where we want our buttons to be. So we'll work our first row of single crochets, and then our second row we'll mark the places we want our buttonhole to be, then work and leave spaces for the buttonhole. So turn your work, and this side you're going to start from the top going downwards because you're starting on the right side of our shirt. So with your hook and your yarn, remember we are skipping this stitch that we started, the neck band in or the collar, and in the very next double crochet we're going to work 2 single crochets. So attach your yarn, chain 1, and then place 2 single crochets in that stitch. The next double crochet stitch you want to place 2 single crochets, then continue doing this, placing 2 single crochets around every double crochet stitch all the way until the end of your row. At the end of row 1 you're going to mark points where you're going to place the buttonholes, and to proceed to row 2 I have my 5 points. Turn the work, and then for row 2 you're going to single crochet in each stitch until you reach your first marker. Remember to chain 1 when turning, so single crochet in each stitch, and then I'll meet you when you have the stitch with marker remaining. Once you reach the stitch with marker you're going to chain 2, then skip the stitch with marker and skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch, so that is the second stitch from marker, you're going to place a single crochet, then single crochet in each stitch until you reach the next marker. So at this point you can try on your button and see if it gets inside that buttonhole. So ours can go through the buttonhole, and that is perfect. So we're going to repeat that in every buttonhole until you reach the end of this row. So just single crochet until you reach the stitch with marker. You're going to chain 2, skip the stitch with marker and skip the next stitch after marker, and in the second stitch after marker you're going to continue with your single crochets. So do that, and then I'll meet you at the very end, show you the repeat pattern, and you can finish the buttonhole band. At the end of your second row, the row for making the buttonholes, you're going to chain 1 and turn the work, and then for the third row you're going to work single crochet in each stitch until you reach the chain 2 space. So single crochet in every stitch, and I'll meet you in our first chain 2 space. Once you reach the chain 2 space after working in the previous single crochet stitch, you want to place 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space. Then proceed with your single crochet in every stitch until the next chain 2 space, place 2 single crochet in the chain 2 space, continue the single crochet in every stitch, and repeat that all the way to the end of row 3. And then for row 4 and 5 you want to chain 1 single crochet in every stitch in those 2 rows. Once you're done with row 5, you're going to cut your yarn, weave in all the ends, and then I'll meet you when you're attaching our buttons and finishing up this. Once you're done with weaving in all the ends, you're going to come back and then lay the button band so that you can mark the exact places you'd marked for the buttonholes on the opposite side, so that you can do our buttons on that side. So just lay your button band like this, and then mark the places with the buttonholes on the opposite side. So I already marked mine. You're going to go ahead and mark yours, then take your buttons. I changed the buttons that I'm using here. I lost the ones that I showed you when I was starting the video, so I'll just use these ones. So you're going to take your needle, your yarn, and the button. So after marking your points where you're going to do the button, you're going to just pass your yarn and then take the button and sew it there. So once you're confident with the button, you can weave through your yarn until the next hole and continue sewing the buttons, or you can cut your yarn, tie a knot, cut your yarn, and then proceed with the next button individually. So you're going to do that until you finish all the buttons, and then we'll be through with our work. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, so let me know in the comment section below. I'm also open to ideas on what you'd want me to put up here on the channel. So thank you so much for watching.